They say the most dangerous people are those who have nothing left to lose. But I learned something different in that sterile boardroom on a Thursday morning that changed everything. The most dangerous person is someone who finally understands their true worth. My name is Olivia Mitchell, and for 12 years, I poured my heart, soul, and brilliance into building Mitchell Pharmaceuticals alongside my family. I sacrificed relationships, weekends, and my own dreams to create life saving innovations that generated 60% of our company's revenue. I held three groundbreaking patents, led a team of world class researchers, and helped transform a garage startup into a pharmaceutical powerhouse worth hundreds of millions. Then, in less than 10 minutes, my parents and brother erased me from the company I built. No warning, no explanation, no respect for everything I'd contributed, just cold, calculated betrayal wrapped in corporate jargon. "You're fired," my father said, his voice devoid of the warmth that once encouraged my childhood dreams. "All communication goes through the company lawyer." I could have screamed. I could have begged. I could have broken down right there in front of the board members who watched in uncomfortable silence. Instead, I looked my father in the eye and said one word: understood. They thought that word meant surrender. They had no idea it meant war. This is the story of how I fought back, reclaimed my power, and taught my family that some people can't be discarded without consequences. The lab was silent except for the gentle hum of centrifuges and the rhythmic tapping of my fingers against the steel countertop. At 11:47 p.m., I was alone with my thoughts and the latest batch of test results that would either validate months of research or send me back to the drawing board. Again, I'm Olivia Mitchell, 34, and this sterile room filled with sophisticated equipment represents everything I've worked toward since I was 8 years old. Begging my father for chemistry sets instead of dolls, my father, Dr. John Mitchell, was a brilliant biochemist who saw something in my endless questions about how things worked at the molecular level. Weekend mornings in his home lab became my sanctuary. While other kids watched cartoons, I learned about protein synthesis and chemical reactions. "Olivia," he'd say, adjusting his reading glasses as we peered through a microscope together, "you have a natural instinct for this. The way you see pattern, make connections, it's special." Those moments shaped everything that followed. MIT became my playground, where I earned dual degrees in biochemical engineering and business administration. When graduation approached, pharmaceutical giants competed for my attention, with six-figure offers and signing bonuses that could have eliminated my student loans instantly. "You're insane," my roommate Charlotte declared when I announced my decision. "Pfizer wants you. Merck is practically throwing money at you. Why choose a startup that might not exist in 5 years?" The answer was simple: legacy and vision. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals wasn't just a job opportunity. It was a chance to build something meaningful alongside the people who had nurtured my dreams from the beginning. My mother, Sandra, possessed the kind of razor-sharp business acumen that could identify market opportunities others missed entirely. During our Sunday family dinners, she'd explain her philosophy. "Business isn't just about quarterly profits, Olivia. It's about creating something that outlives you, something that makes the world better." I wanted to create that legacy with them. The early days at Mitchell Pharmaceuticals were equal parts exhilarating and exhausting. We operated out of a converted warehouse that doubled as office space, testing facility, and break room. My official office was a corner desk surrounded by equipment boxes and prototype models. 80-hour weeks became routine. I arrived before sunrise and left long after the security lights activated. Dating became theoretical, and starting my own family moved to an indefinite someday list. The company was my baby, and I nurtured it with obsessive dedication. Within 3 years, my research yielded our first breakthrough, a revolutionary drug delivery system that significantly reduced chemotherapy side effects. The patent was groundbreaking, offering hope to cancer patients worldwide while establishing Mitchell Pharmaceuticals as a serious competitor in oncology support. Two more patents followed over the next 5 years, each representing years of methodical research and countless failed experiments. These innovations transformed our garage operation into a mid-sized pharmaceutical company with over 200 employees and contracts with major hospital networks across the country. Industry publications featured our success story, often highlighting my innovations as the driving force behind our 400% revenue growth. The patents I developed generated approximately 60% of company revenue, a fact I wore with quiet pride rather than arrogance. Family dynamics blended seamlessly with business operations. Strategy meetings flowed into family dinners, and vacation conversations inevitably returned to work. I didn't mind the company, felt like an extension of our family bond. My younger brother Ryan joined us after completing his marketing degree, where I inherited our father's scientific mind. Ryan possessed our mother's gift for persuasion and presentation. He headed our marketing department, creating campaigns that brought our life-saving products to wider attention. Unlike my workaholic tendencies, Ryan maintained healthy boundaries, rarely staying past 5 p.m. and taking every allocated vacation day. You need to live a little, live, he'd tell me pa, using my childhood nickname. The company won't collapse if you take a weekend off. But I couldn't step away. Every success fueled my vision of Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' future as a major player in personalized medicine, developing treatments tailored to individual genetic profiles. In my mind, I would eventually take the helm as CEO when our parents retired. With Ryan continuing our public-facing efforts, that future seemed inevitable until everything changed. The first crack in my confidence appeared during our annual industry conference in Boston. While networking between presentations, I overheard fragments of conversation between my father and our CFO, Theodore Chen. We need to consider restructuring before moving forward with the public offering, my father said, his voice unusually hushed. The investors are asking pointed questions about our leadership structure. And Olivia, have you discussed this with her? Theodore asked. Not yet. Sandra thinks we should wait until plans are more concrete. They noticed me approaching and abruptly shifted to discussing the conference schedule. When I asked about their conversation later, my father waved away my concerns. Just exploring options for expanding the research department, he said dismissively. Nothing for you to worry about. I trusted him completely, never imagining that restructuring might mean removing me from the equation entirely. We were family, and family protected each other. Over the following months, strange patterns emerged. Meetings appeared on the company calendar when I was scheduled to be in the lab. Twice, I walked into my father's office to find him ending phone calls abruptly. My mother, usually my strongest advocate in strategic decisions, became oddly distant during planning sessions. The most troubling discovery came accidentally. During a charity gala, the CEO of Westlake Biomed mentioned their excitement about next week's meeting regarding a potential distribution partnership. Your brother Ryan has been very persuasive about the partnership potential, he remarked casually. I maintained my composure through dinner, but confronted my mother the following morning. Why wasn't I informed about the Westlake negotiations? Oh, it's very preliminary, she replied, avoiding eye contact. We didn't want to distract you from the clinical trials. You're so busy already. Olivia. Her explanation sounded reasonable, but the pattern continued. Investor meetings scheduled without my knowledge, research direction changes approved without my input. Most disturbing were the private lunches between my parents and Ryan, marked vaguely as family business in their calendars. When I attempted to address these concerns during our monthly leadership review, My father's response was swift and dismissive. You're being paranoid. Olivia, perhaps you're working too hard. Have you considered taking some time off? Their synchronized dismissal of my legitimate concerns left me reeling. For the first time, I felt like an outsider in my own company. The emergency board meeting email arrived at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday evening. Attendance mandatory, no agenda attached. The sender was my father's executive account. I spent the night reviewing every contract, patent filing, and contribution I'd made to Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. Whatever was coming, I would face it prepared. Though sleep eluded me as questions circled my mind like predators, morning arrived with cruel swiftness. I dressed meticulously in my most authoritative Navy suit armor for the battle ahead. As I drove to the office, dread pressed against my chest, making each breath deliberate. The boardroom fell silent as I pushed open the heavy oak doors. 8 pairs of eyes turned toward me, then quickly away, finding sudden interest in documents or the cityscape through floor-to-ceiling windows. The air felt charged with uncomfortable anticipation. My usual seat at my father's right hand had been taken by Ryan, who offered a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. An unfamiliar leather portfolio sat at his elbow, embossed with his initials in gold. I took the only remaining chair, directly opposite my parents rather than beside them. Now that everyone's present, we can begin, my father announced, his voice carrying none of its usual warmth. He wore his investor meeting face, all business and sharp edges. My mother sat beside him with perfect posture, manicured hands folded precisely on the polished table. She hadn't looked directly at me since I entered. Board members shifted uncomfortably. Most had known me since the company's inception, had celebrated milestones and weathered crises with me. Today, they studied their tablets with unusual intensity. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals stands at a crucial juncture, my father began, reading from prepared remarks, to capitalize on emerging market opportunities and prepare for our planned IPO. We must implement strategic leadership restructuring, effective immediately. The corporate speak felt surreal coming from my father's mouth. This was the man who taught me to ride a bike, who brought me soup when I was sick, who beamed with pride at my college graduation. Now he spoke as if addressing a stranger. After extensive evaluation, the board has approved a new organizational structure. Ryan Mitchell will assume the position of Chief Operating Officer, overseeing daily operations and strategic initiatives. My brother straightened almost imperceptibly, his expression carefully neutral. I felt blood drain from my face, but maintained my composure. Olivia's position is being eliminated as part of this restructuring, my father continued, still avoiding my gaze. Her responsibilities will be distributed between Ryan and a new research director to be named later. My mother finally spoke, her voice practiced and even. We believe fresh direction is needed to pursue new market segments. Ryan's vision aligns more closely with the board's growth strategy for our public offering. The words washed over me like acid rain. Fresh direction, Ryan's vision, growth strategy, corporate euphemisms masking simple betrayal. I'd like to understand the specific concerns about my leadership that prompted this decision, I said, taking a measured breath. This isn't about your performance, my father replied too quickly. The company is simply moving in a direction that requires different expertise. Different expertise, I echoed, struggling to maintain professional tone. The company was built on my patents. Our 3 flagship products exist because of my research. Our primary revenue streams depend on innovations I developed. My mother's smile tightened. And we're grateful for those contributions. Olivia, you'll receive a generous severance package reflecting your years with the company. You're terminating my employment entirely, I stated, the reality finally crystallizing. Not repositioning me, not offering a different role. Complete termination. Ryan finally spoke, his voice carrying rehearsed sympathy. We feel a clean break would be best for everyone. Continuing in another capacity would be awkward. Theodore looked distinctly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should discuss transition arrangements to ensure ongoing projects aren't disrupted. That won't be necessary, my father cut in. Ryan has been briefed on all essential operations. The implication struck like a physical blow. This hadn't been a sudden decision. They had been planning this systematically, extracting my knowledge while preparing to discard me. When does this take effect? I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me. Immediately, my father replied, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. Your personal items will be packed and delivered to your residence. Building access has been deactivated, and if I have questions about the severance terms. My father's response froze every warm memory I had of him. You're fired, Olivia. All communication goes through the company lawyer from this point forward. The boardroom fell silent. Even those who had supported the decision seemed shocked by his coldness. I stood slowly, smoothed my jacket, and picked up the envelope with steady hands that betrayed nothing of my internal collapse. Understood, I said simply, meeting each gaze around the table before walking out with my dignity intact. That single word contained multitudes they couldn't begin to anticipate. The parking garage provided blessed privacy as I finally allowed my composure to crack. My hands shook violently as I fumbled with the car keys, missing the ignition twice before connecting. 12 years of sacrifice had culminated in that sterile dismissal. I drove aimlessly before parking at Lakeside Park, where my father and I used to feed ducks on Sunday mornings. Through the windshield, I watched joggers and dog walkers enjoying spring sunshine, their worlds intact, while mine had imploded. When my breathing steadied, I called Jessica Winters, our corporate attorney and my closest friend at the firm. They did it, I said when she answered, my voice hollow. Complete termination. Effective immediately. I've been trying to reach you, Jessica replied, her voice tight with concern. They called an emergency partners meeting right after the board adjourned. I've been instructed to handle your separation agreement. Are you still my friend, Jess, or just their lawyer now? Friend always, but professionally, I need to recuse myself from representing either side. There's too much conflict of interest. We arranged to meet at her downtown condo that evening, neutral territory for what I suspected would be a conversation that changed everything. Jessica's living room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, felt like a war room as we spread documents across her glass coffee table. The severance agreement was exactly what I expected: 12 months' salary in exchange for comprehensive non-compete clauses, confidentiality provisions, and waiver of all claims against the company. First, don't sign anything, Jessica advised, scanning the document. This is insulting given your contributions. What leverage do I have? They've already removed me. Jessica opened her laptop with a determined expression. More than you realize. Let's start with the patent situation. What we discovered changed everything. While Mitchell Pharmaceuticals had licensing rights to my innovations, the original patent assignments contained a critical flaw. I had signed them as a college intern before officially joining the company, and the agreements lacked proper consideration clauses required for valid intellectual property transfer. This is significant, Jessica explained. There's a strong legal argument that these agreements are void or at minimum require renegotiation. But the real bombshell came when Jessica hesitantly shared information she'd been wrestling with professionally. Olivia, I need to tell you something. Even though it might violate attorney-client privilege, the company has been in advanced negotiations with PharmaCorp for a potential acquisition. That's the real reason for your termination. My blood turned to ice. Acquisition. PharmaCorp wants to acquire Mitchell Pharmaceuticals to eliminate competition in the oncology support market. But they view you as a liability too independent, too innovative, too likely to resist integration. Your removal was a condition of their offer. The betrayal deepened beyond personal hurt into something darker. My family hadn't just fired me, they had sold me out to ensure a lucrative exit strategy. There's more, Jessica continued reluctantly. I've seen preliminary documents. If the acquisition proceeds, your research programs will be discontinued. PharmaCorp has competing products they want to protect. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't about my management style or company restructuring. This was about erasing me and my innovations to facilitate a corporate sellout that would bury the life-saving treatments I had dedicated years to developing. Sleep that night came in fragments, punctuated by dreams of betrayal and loss. But by morning, grief had crystallized into cold determination. If my family wanted to play corporate hardball, I would remind them that I had learned from the best. My first call was to Dr. Patricia Gonzalez, a patent attorney specializing in pharmaceutical intellectual property. Her downtown office, lined with successful case studies and industry awards, represented the kind of expertise I needed. These patent assignments are questionable at best, Patricia confirmed after reviewing my documentation. You signed these as an intern, and the consideration clauses are insufficient. We have strong grounds to challenge the licensing agreements. What does that mean practically? It means Mitchell Pharmaceuticals may lose the right to use your innovations without proper compensation reflecting their market value. And given that your patents generate approximately 60% of their revenue, the implications were clear. Without my innovations, Mitchell Pharmaceuticals would become a dramatically less attractive acquisition target. My second strategic move was reaching out to Dr. Michael Chen, CEO of Biotech Innovations, Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' primary competitor. Our companies had competed respectfully for years, and Michael had always expressed admiration for my research. Olivia, I heard about your departure, Michael said when I called. Frankly, I'm shocked. Your innovations are legendary in our industry. I'm exploring new opportunities, I replied carefully. Would you be interested in discussing potential collaboration? The meeting was scheduled for the following week, but I made sure word of our connection reached industry circles quickly. In pharmaceutical business, talent acquisition rumors traveled faster than clinical trial results. Meanwhile, I began documenting every proprietary process, manufacturing optimization, and research pathway that existed only in my mind. This intellectual capital represented operational knowledge they couldn't easily replace. I also reached out to key hospital clients who had specifically requested my involvement in their implementations. Many expressed immediate concern about my departure and questioned whether they should continue their contracts with Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. The pieces of my response strategy were falling into place, but I needed one more element: public pressure. 7 days after my termination, I authorized Patricia to send a formal cease and desist letter to Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. The document was a masterpiece of legal precision, challenging the validity of patent licensing agreements and demanding immediate cessation of unauthorized intellectual property use pending resolution. But my real strategic move was subtler and more devastating. I had maintained excellent relationships with several pharmaceutical industry journalists throughout my career. When Sarah Chen from BioPharm Weekly called for a routine industry update, I carefully shared my perspective on recent corporate consolidation trends and the concerning practice of eliminating innovators to facilitate acquisitions. I never mentioned Mitchell Pharmaceuticals specifically, but Sarah was an experienced journalist. Within hours, she was investigating rumors about PharmaCorp acquisition discussions and the suspicious timing of my departure. The article published 3 days later was titled, Innovation Brain Drain: Are Pharmaceutical Acquisition Silencing Scientific Progress? While diplomatically written, it raised pointed questions about companies eliminating research leaders to smooth merger processes. The impact was immediate. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' stock price dropped 12% in 2 days. Industry analysts began questioning the company's long-term innovation pipeline. Most importantly, the article caught PharmaCorp's attention, and not in a good way. My phone buzzed at 6:30 a.m. with Ryan's number. I let it go to voicemail. Olivia, we need to talk about this patent situation immediately. His message began, panic evident in his voice. And now, there are these media reports connecting your departure to some acquisition rumors. This is getting out of hand. I called him back an hour later, after I'd finished my morning coffee and reviewed the latest industry coverage. I believe Dad made the communication protocol clear, I said when Ryan answered. Please have the company lawyer contact my attorney. Her information is in the letter. This is family, not just business, he protested. That distinction was erased in the boardroom. Ryan, I'm simply protecting my interests as you all protected yours. Production is scheduled for next week. We can't just stop using the delivery system. Patients are depending on these treatments. That sounds like a significant operational challenge, I replied calmly. One that someone with my expertise could have helped prevent. I ended the call and turned off my phone, allowing myself a moment of grim satisfaction. The tremors were beginning, and they would intensify. My family's response came through formal channels, a dismissive legal letter asserting their continued right to use the patents under existing agreements, accompanied by threats of countersuits for interference with business operations. They clearly believed I was bluffing, that family ties would prevent me from truly disrupting the business. They didn't yet understand that those same family ties made my response more, not less, determined. Within days, the operational consequences became apparent. Without my knowledge of calibration procedures for specialized equipment, quality control metrics began failing. Two major hospital networks placed orders on hold pending clarification of my role in ongoing support. Research projects stalled without my guidance on next phase protocols. But the real pressure came from an unexpected source, PharmaCorp, the pharmaceutical giant. Spooked by media attention and questions about their acquisition strategy, began demanding guarantees about intellectual property ownership and operational continuity. According to my industry sources, they were threatening to reduce their offer significantly or withdraw entirely if the talent acquisition issues couldn't be resolved quickly. My parents had calculated that removing me would smooth the acquisition process. Instead, my departure was jeopardizing the entire deal. The situation escalated when I received a formal offer from Biotech Innovations. Michael Chen's proposal was generous Chief Technology Officer position, equity stake, and full support for continuing my research programs. More importantly, he offered to acquire licensing rights to my patents, providing the legal coverage I needed to extract them from Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. I didn't accept immediately, but I made sure news of the offer reached industry circles. The message was clear. Olivia Mitchell had options, and those options represented serious competitive threats to Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. The final straw came when three members of my former research team submitted resignations, citing concerns about the company's commitment to innovation. These weren't just any employees, they were the scientists who understood my work most intimately and could potentially follow me to a competitor. My phone started ringing constantly with calls from Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' number. I ignored them all, letting them experience the same communication barriers they had imposed on me. The call from Patricia came exactly 2 weeks after my termination. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' outside counsel contacted me this morning. They're requesting an urgent meeting to discuss mutually beneficial resolution options. Translation: they're feeling the pressure and want to negotiate. I recommend we meet at my office, not theirs. Maintain the psychological advantage. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday at 9:00 a.m., the same time my termination had been announced. The symmetry felt appropriate. But that afternoon, something unexpected happened. My father's personal number appeared on my phone. For the first time in 2 weeks, I answered. Olivia. His voice was strained, older somehow. We need to talk, not as Mitchell Pharmaceuticals executives, but as family. Just the four of us. That depends entirely on you, I replied. But I would require neutral territory and clear acknowledgement of what happened. No corporate spin, no minimizing. Agreed. Riverview Restaurant. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., just us. Riverview occupied the top floor of Westlake Tower, offering panoramic views of the city below. I arrived 20 minutes early, selecting a corner table that allowed me to observe the entrance while maintaining the psychological advantage of being settled first. My parents and Ryan arrived together at precisely 7, creating a visual tableau of family unity from which I was conspicuously excluded. My mother wore her most serious business attire, while my father looked older than I remembered, shoulders slightly stooped. Olivia, my father began as they took their seats. Thank you for agreeing to meet. This isn't a favor, I replied evenly. It's a business discussion with personal implications. My mother flinched at the coldness in my tone. We're still family, regardless of business disagreements. Family doesn't ambush family in board meetings, I countered. Family doesn't systematically exclude family from decisions. Family doesn't terminate family without warning. My father raised his hands in a placating gesture. We handled things poorly. I acknowledge that and take responsibility. Acknowledgement isn't enough. I need to understand why. After 12 years of building this company together, what possibly justified not just removing me from leadership, but firing me completely? The silence stretched uncomfortably before my mother spoke. The truth is complicated. Olivia, the board has been under tremendous pressure from potential investors regarding our IPO readiness. They questioned whether our leadership structure was optimal for public company requirements and the acquisition discussions with PharmaCorp. My father's surprise was genuine. How did you? Who told you about that? Does it matter? The point is, you've been negotiating the sale of our company, a company built on my innovations, without including me in those discussions. More than that, you made my removal a condition of the deal. Ryan finally spoke. That's not exactly true. PharmaCorp expressed concerns about operational continuity and leadership stability. They wanted assurance that the transition to corporate ownership would be smooth. And apparently, I represented instability. You're passionate about your research, my mother said carefully. Sometimes that passion can be inflexible when it comes to corporate integration requirements. The euphemism stung worse than direct insult. So you decided to eliminate the problem rather than address their concerns. My father's composure finally cracked. We thought it would be temporary. The plan was to bring you back as a consultant once the acquisition closed. With more resources and support than we could ever provide independently, without asking me, without considering that I might prefer building our own company to being absorbed by a corporation that would bury my research to protect their existing products. The admission hung in the air like smoke. They had planned to sacrifice my life's work for financial security, assuming I would eventually understand and forgive. What do you want, Olivia? My father asked, exhaustion evident in his voice. Money, your position back. Tell us what it will take to end this standoff. I leaned forward, my voice steady and clear. I want what I've earned. Equal partnership reflecting my contributions to this company's success. Board representation ensuring I can't be ambushed again. And most importantly, acknowledgement that how you treated me was fundamentally wrong. Not just tactically, but morally. Equal partnership, Ryan responded. Anger breaking through. We created this company, took all the initial risks, and it would have remained a small contract research operation without my innovations. I interrupted. The company's growth trajectory changed dramatically when my first patent was commercialized. The evidence is in the financial statements. My mother, ever the pragmatist, intervened. Let's be practical. The company needs your knowledge to resolve this immediate crisis, and PharmaCorp is threatening to withdraw their offer entirely. Perhaps we can establish terms that address everyone's concerns. I'm not interested in band-aid solutions, I stated firmly. Either we address the fundamental power imbalance, or I'll explore other options for my patents and expertise. Biotech Innovations has made a very attractive offer. The conversation continued for nearly 3 hours, cycling through anger, negotiation, and occasional moments of genuine connection. Beneath the business discussion lay deeper family dynamics that couldn't be resolved in a single evening. Finally, as our food grew cold and the restaurant began to empty, my father spoke with painful honesty. I need to tell you something. Olivia, this wasn't just about business strategy. I was scared. Your innovations were surpassing mine. Your vision for the company was broader than anything I'd imagined. Instead of celebrating that as a father should, I felt threatened by it. The vulnerability in his admission created space for my own truth. I was so focused on proving my value through work that I never built a life outside the company. When you took that away, I had nothing left. But that also made me realize what's truly important. As midnight approached, we reached a tentative framework that would reshape both the company and our family relationships. The formal agreement took 3 weeks to negotiate, with lawyers crafting language that balanced family dynamics with corporate governance requirements. The final structure was complex but fair. I would return as Chief Innovation Officer with equal executive authority to Ryan's COO position. My father would remain CEO with my mother as CFO, but major strategic decisions would require consensus among all 4 family members. The board would be restructured to include independent directors, preventing future unilateral decisions. Most importantly, my patents would be properly valued with royalty structures that reflected their contribution to company revenue. The PharmaCorp acquisition was abandoned in favor of pursuing our own IPO, with my research pipeline as a cornerstone of our public offering strategy. This isn't just about titles and compensation. I emphasized during our final negotiation session, trust has been fundamentally broken. Rebuilding it will require consistent actions, not just legal agreements. The market response was immediate and positive. When news of my return with expanded authority reached industry channels, our company's valuation increased significantly. Hospital clients renewed their contracts with specific provisions requiring my oversight. Research collaborations resumed with renewed energy, but the personal healing progressed more slowly. Family dinners remained stilted, with conversation carefully avoiding emotional territory. The professional reconciliation was easier than the personal forgiveness. 3 months after my return, we faced our first major test, a acquisition opportunity that would have been decided unilaterally in the past. Now, we engaged in genuine collaborative assessment, each bringing distinct perspectives to the analysis. After thorough evaluation, we unanimously declined the acquisition, a decision that demonstrated our commitment to collective wisdom over individual preferences. The company IPO launched 6 months later, exceeding all projections and establishing Mitchell Pharmaceuticals as a major player in personalized medicine. My research pipeline, combined with Ryan's marketing expertise and our parents' operational experience, created a balanced leadership structure that attracted both investors and talent. More importantly, I began reclaiming personal agency beyond professional identity. I established firm work boundaries, leaving the office by 6 p.m. most evenings. I renovated the spare bedroom that had functioned as a home office into an art studio, reconnecting with creative passions abandoned during college. At a charity gala, 6 months after my return, I met Daniel Harrison, an architectural engineer whose work in sustainable building design complemented my scientific background without competing with it. For the first time, I envisioned future possibilities that included both career fulfillment and personal partnership. You seem different, Jessica observed during one of our monthly dinners. More grounded somehow? Nearly losing everything made me realize what actually matters. I replied, the company is important, but it's not my entire identity anymore. That hard-won wisdom would prove the most valuable outcome of the entire painful journey. 1 year after my termination, we held a private dinner celebrating Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' transformation into a publicly traded company. Seated around the table were four family members who had weathered corporate crisis and personal betrayal to forge something stronger. My father raised his glass in a toast to Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' future built on innovation, partnership, and hard-won wisdom. My mother added softly, and to family bonds that bent but didn't break. Ryan nodded toward me, to my sister, who taught us all that true value can't be dismissed with a termination letter. I completed the circle, to lessons we wouldn't have chosen but couldn't have done without. The company continued forward, not erasing the painful chapter, but integrating its lessons into a stronger foundation. The scars remained visible in moments of cautious communication and lingering hesitation, but no longer defined our interactions. We had created something I once thought impossible, a professional partnership where my contributions received appropriate recognition and a family relationship gradually healing from betrayal's deep wounds. The word understood had contained multitudes that day in the boardroom. Acknowledgement of their betrayal, acceptance of a new reality, and the seed of a response they never anticipated. Sometimes our greatest strength emerges only when we're forced to find it. And sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is simply proving them wrong. In the end, I learned that understanding isn't passive acceptance, it's the foundation for strategic action. And when someone tries to erase your value, the most devastating response isn't anger or revenge, but demonstrating just how indispensable you truly are.